before we go on and take a break?
Number 7, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Chief Laban? Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, board members, the Department of Fire and Rescue submitted in the CIP package this year for the replacement of 2 medic units. Unfortunately, due to fiscal constraints, both of those projects that project was cut. However, to look for alternative funding at the January 26th meeting of the Board of Supervisors, we requested to submit for grant assistance through the FY 2010 Office of EMS Assistance to Rescue Squad Assistance Funds. Grant to help offset the cost of a replacement medic unit. The grant was originally submitted for $72,500, or 50% the maximum allowable amount for the grant for the medic unit, and we also requested $25,550 for 7 additional Toughbook computers for EMS electronic reporting. The Office of EMS announced July 1st that Caroline County was awarded financial assistance for the Rescue Squad Assistance Grant for a total of $97,547. That was broken down into 100% funding for the Toughbook computers, and we were allotted $71,997 as a maximum 50% match towards the purchase of a new medic unit. The department responded to 3,900, a little over 4,000 calls last year, and collected approximately $336,000 in revenue recovery. That was an increase from last year of about $36,000. The department currently has 13 transport units. It is my intention that if we are able to purchase this new medic unit is to reduce the overall fleet to 12. That will be retiring 2 of the aging units and rotating some apparatus around to extend the life expectancy of those units. I've assigned a committee to develop a set of specifications. It's been comprised of both career and volunteer personnel. We're also looking at other options as far as purchasing a demo unit that's already constructed that might meet our needs at a reduced cost. So we're looking at several options. The cost estimate that I gave you in January was for $145,000. The cost estimate that I give you tonight for the purchase of a new medic unit is $150,000, and that's based on the new chassis, new year chassis increases. In your package, working with Ms. Hatcher and Mr. Parton, we put together a couple of options for you to consider this evening. Those are, number one, it appears right now that the Department of Fire and Rescue will return approximately $99,000 to the county in the FY budget. The other possibility for funding this match is the higher anticipation of EMS transport fees. Again, we've come in about $36,000 over what we projected last year, and that was after the distribution of the refunds that we were required to do this year. I'm anticipating a higher return in revenue next year for 2 reasons. Number one, my office is doing all of the submissions to DAB now, and number two, we've transitioned to an electronic format. So I think we've basically got a more efficient and effective system right now. But basically, I come before you tonight to ask consideration that you accept this grant and allow us to purchase 1 new medic unit. Again, this was our highest priority that we identified in all of fire rescue was replacement of the medic units.
Okay, Chief, we appreciate the update. And I see this would have to be done by September 1st to receive the grant.
That is correct, and then we have 12 months to execute it.
Okay. All right, questions of Chief Lehman, Ms. Thomas?
Yeah, Cecilia was ready.
Mr.
I
Seeley?
was just curious, you talked about a demo unit. What kind of cost, what's the difference in cost in that? Are there advantages or disadvantages to it?
There are, but basically what we're going to have to do is find one that meets our needs as far as compartment configuration, so forth, warranties. We're working with about 4 or 5 different manufacturers right now to see what's out there, what they have to offer. For example, we might get a graphics package as a bonus that we don't pay for if we purchase a demo unit. So there are some cost savings, but it's going to be some give and take.
But cost-wise, it's still pretty much a wash other than what they may throw in.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Akers or Mr. Popowitz?
No, I have a question. I just, Mr. Lehman feels that we need to have this unit, and he said that we have 6 months in order to exercise the grant or to purchase. 12 months to purchase the unit and still be.
June 30th, 2011.
Yeah, to still get okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, but we can still do it later in the year and get the grant money and still the same price that that's been quoted.
I'm sorry?
The price of the unit. How long is that good for?
Well, it's going to be dependent on what we do. If we go through a contract, we'll set the contract and then we'll pay when the unit arrives, which if we're building a unit, it's probably going to take all of that 12 months. If we purchase a demo unit, it's going to be an immediate purchase if we can purchase off a cooperative clause.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in, I have no problem with accepting the grant and moving ahead with the process.
All right, Mr. Popowitz?
No, I think if we can get another EMS unit and we have a grant that'll pay for half of it, I don't think there's a problem with that. I mean, we've kind of pushed these things out, and I'm a little concerned that we're maybe done too much, so.
Yeah, I think, next year we'd be the same place without a grant.
Yes.
So it just would make sense that, we look at that, and then if you order it, you pay for it when it gets here.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the grant and move forward with the allocation of up to $78,000 for the purchase of a medic unit.
Second.
okay, motion made and probably second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And the board would take a short recess. Oh,
The regional jail first. She's here,
Okay.
and it's $160. It's like 6 people. We're not going to change it. I can't-
okay. All right. Our Vice Chair would like to move on that, and that's you with the board.
Agenda item 5.
That's fine.
All right. Do we need any discussion on that item?
I don't think we do. It's my opinion we're basically going to stay the same because from the report, I think we had 6 cases of transport in 2010, and we had 4 in 2009. It's $160. 150? Okay. I knew I'd seen it in that range. I didn't see it right here. It's $150. Now, you agree to the same fee? Chief, you agree to the same fee? I make a motion that we keep the fee $150 and for the next 2 years because it's a 2-year contract.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, motion made and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. All right.
So she was here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thacker.
Okay.
The board now will take a recess. The Carolina County Board of Supervisors will now reconvene, and at this point of the agenda, we'll open the public comment period, and we'll open the floor to any citizens who'd like to address the board on any matter. Are there any citizens who'd like to address the board on any matter? Are there any citizens who'd like to address the board on any matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Next item we have the item 6, the proposed amendment, Chapter 68, Code of Virginia, Caroline County, to minor changes in the state law. This is the first reading. Who's going to present that this evening? Is that Major Mosier?
I'll join you with Alan Pardon.
Yeah.
It's very simple, Mr. Chairman. The ordinance, the noise ordinance, needs to mirror the actual state code, and currently it does not mirror the state code on the punishment phase of the actual ordinance. So as long as we mirror the state code, then we can start enforcing the noise ordinance.
Okay.
So it's pretty simple.
Yeah, it's pretty cut and dry in it. You agree with that, Mr. Parton?
I agree 100%, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Okay, so we need a first reading. Do we have a date? Do we need a date? Ma'am?
No, the next thing is
I just have one. Can we just, I just have one comment.
Absolutely.
Can we just put a change bar or highlight what's changing in the actual code, or is the whole thing changing? I mean, I know the fines part is, but I wasn't sure where in our code it was going to change.
The only change is to the penalty section. We would just strike the existing language and replace it with the state code language.
Can we just do that so that everybody knows what we're changing?
We'll make that very clear in the
Okay.
public hearing notice and in the ordinance as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we advance proposed amendment of Chapter 68 to second reading and public hearing on September 28th.
Second. Motion made and proper second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. And that motion carries. All right. Next, we have Ms. Hatcher is going to review our fourth quarter budget report. Good evening, Fran.
Good evening, gentlemen. Earlier this evening, I laid a sheet on your desk, which is for the utility fund. The percentages was wrong. The numbers weren't wrong, but the percentages were. So it's typo on my part. It's a lot of typing. To reiterate some of what Beth was speaking about, this fourth quarter report covers the revenues and expenses for April through June and for the year. These are on a cash basis, and the expenditures on a modified accrual basis, which means they have some of the payables that we've already paid, but it has none of the accrued revenues that we have to do as an exercise. So the revenues are on a cash basis of what's been collected. Our fourth quarter revenues are 6.1% lower this year, and the year-end total revenues are 6.8% lower. However, if you back out the capital improvement funds and the capital projects in the utility funds, our operating revenues are actually 3% higher for the fiscal year, and the fourth quarter expenditures are, the revenues are 3% higher for the fiscal year, strictly on a cash basis. Our fourth quarter expenditures to date are 11.1% lower, and total expenditures for the year is 7.7%. Again, if we pull out the capital project funds and the capital outlay in the water and sewer fund, the operating expenditures are 1% lower for the year than they were last year.
Can I ask a question here, since we're...
If you
I'll
must.
wait. I'll wait if that's...
I don't mind.
All right, you go right here.
And I just want to see how this gets looked at, because I took the operating revenues, which are 3% higher, which is $87,460,358. And then I took it, the operating expenditures were 1% lower than last year, which is $85,142,224. And what I saw is a delta of a savings of $2,318,134. So it looks like we're $2.3 million in the black at the end of the fiscal year.
On a cash basis, yes, sir.
So we ended the year $2.3 million ahead of where we thought we were going to be.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain how we're there? Because we did some really drastic things that don't make a lot of sense then.
But what I'm saying is, part of what you're looking at, the revenues are strictly on a cash basis. What we report, what Beth reports to you on revenues and what I've reported here are the actual collections July 1st through June 30th. For reporting purposes, and what you see in your financial audits is on an accrual basis. So the revenues that are collected in July and August, most of those revenues belong to the prior year. They do not belong to the current year. So you've got a little bit of apples and oranges here. I don't know what the revenues are going to be for July and August of this year that go back into your fiscal year 10 actual audit for that purpose.
But can't we, almost for an assumption purpose, say it's basically going to be a wash?
No. Some of your revenues, right now the collections of property taxes are a little bit higher. Looking at just the July numbers, this year's property tax collections, especially the delinquent collections, are higher this July than they were last July. But I also know my state revenues, such as the comp board and a few of those that come in for July, are going to be lower because the state's already cut them. So it won't exactly be a wash, but I don't know how it's going to pan out.
But guess-wise, I mean, because you're looking at real numbers.
Accountants don't guess.
Well, but, okay, prognosticate forward. I mean, are we really $2.3 million in the black?
Didn't have quite 2.3 million, no, sir.
Well, I took the 87.
Wait a second. What do you have? Because that cuts right to the chase. So
I don't disagree. Let's go back to, I mean, I'm using numbers.
2.307.
That's
Close.
2.3318. I mean, 2.318. I mean, I won't even split hairs with you. Okay, 2.307. So all that. I mean, am I the only one that's? I mean, I'm pretty shocked because we've done 1% salary cuts next year. We eliminated basically 10 positions this year.
That's correct. Going forward, we've accounted for things that we did not know about or came in higher than expected in fiscal year 10. One case in point would be the public service taxes. Because of the Dominion Power turbines that went on, we got extra monies for that, but we also got extra money that applied to a prior year. We won't get that money next year.
No, I agree, but I mean, we're at the end of the year, we're closing out the books, and you're still waiting for July and August accruals to come in, which,
Yes.
You know, we're quabbling over less than $200,000 delta between the number that I calculated and the number that you're going to give us.
That's probably about right.
And I just look at some of the draconian measures that we took throughout the year for fear that we weren't going to make budget based on all the numbers that we had, and now we're I guess I'm just floored. So I guess the question is, are we going to looking at the budget, looking forward from where we are now, looking at the revenues, looking at the expenditures. I mean, we gave employees 1% and 2% pay cuts. Has anybody talked about, I mean, is anybody else this surprised? Because we haven't heard this number at all throughout the year. We kept hearing we were barely going to make budget.
Well, certainly out of a $80 million budget, and, all the things, you're gonna have some of the adjustments that have to be made once all the bills are paid. We know we had additional Dominion Power money that we weren't anticipating. So, yeah, our people have been cutting back. You heard of the different departments who have been saving. So there's, you tally them all up. I imagine they do add up. And as we finish getting the final tally of the numbers, we'll see that. But, also with the cash flow issue, some of those dollars will be used as well for that. But I don't know. We're at the point now where we know where every dollar is until everything's been, I guess, accrued and get that. I think we can maybe drill down into that a little more as we have more time to do that.
Well, our actual revenues for the general fund, when you look at all the funds, a lot of the special revenue funds and stuff, you can't add them all together because they are restricted by nature. That's why they're called a special revenue fund. Utilities fund is also restricted by nature. It's off on its own as an enterprise fund. It has to operate differently. The report here for the utility fund is completely on an accrual basis because that's the only way our system works for utilities. On the cash basis, the general fund revenues were $1.2 million higher than what we budgeted, 500 of which applies to Dominion Power that we won't see that number again. That was applied to what they gave us retroactively for 2009 taxes. So you're talking basically on the general fund about $700,000 increase over budget of revenues. So it's not the, if you take all the funds and add them together, yes, you come up with that number, but your capital project funds, your fire rescue grant funds, the law library, all those other funds are not really our funds to think that, oh, we've just got all this money in this big pot. They're restricted. The revenues in the law library can only be spent on the law library. That's why it's in a separate fund. Courthouse maintenance, the revenues collected in courthouse maintenance fund, they're in a separate fund because it's required by state legislature, and it can only be used for certain things. So it's not part of the general fund that you think. So you can't, while I do the report so you can see the overall total as a total because it goes in your audit that way, when you're looking at what you have over or under budget, you're basically only dealing with your general fund. And of course, on the other side, you're looking at your utility fund, which it was a little bit over, not a whole lot, but it was. Your capital projects in here to make the $85 million is included. Well, that's borrowed money you already had, not new money.
Say that one more time.
The expenses and revenues that are showing up in here that are part of that $85 million include your capital projects funds. Well, the capital projects expenditures are funded by borrowed monies, not new monies. So, I mean, it's not really a revenue source per se. So take total 85, 87 versus...
Or 87 versus 85.
Yes.
So you're saying that in the 87 there's borrowed funds as well?
Yes. Because it includes your capital project funds. And all the capital projects this year are being done based on money we've already borrowed.
Right.
So it's not new revenue, and it's not expendable revenue as far as other things that we're trying to do. It's restricted. You borrowed it for a particular purpose, and that's why it's in the capital projects fund and can only be spent on that particular purpose.
But that shows up as revenue?
Yeah.
So can we see this at the end of the year broken out in actual general fund revenue, real revenue. Oh, and I mean, not with borrowed money added in, and, because I gotta tell you, when I looked at those two numbers and subtracted them and said, okay, we've got $2 million plus. But, you know, in the course of reading all this, nowhere does it really break out. I mean, I see all this up and down and up and, but there's no accumulative, where are we, what can we touch, what can't we touch, what is it, what isn't it? So, you know, and I know that some of it's accrued and I know some of it's cash, but I don't know how all that's compilated in this, because it's not really, to me, laid out like that. It's laid out, here's what we have, here's what we could have spent, here's what we didn't spend.
And just a point, now what we can spend is only what's in the general fund,
That's correct.
but the number that he's talking about
Is all the funds combined.
is everything combined.
That's
But
correct.
the only money we can spend is general fund.
No, right.
So how much is left in general fund?
1.2 million.
All right.
What,
And how much of that's Dominion Power?
500,000.
500 of it is money with a one-time shot.
Right. So now you're down to
700.
700.
Okay.
So,
But Fran, excuse me, Ms. Hatcher, in the report you gave us, you have general fund revenue is 35,852,247. And the next expenditure general fund is 33,810,931. So if I just take fuzzy math, 35 and subtract 33, that's 2 million, right?
Part of it's on an accrual basis and part of it's on a cash basis. That's the only problem with the way that we've been doing these reports, is y'all not getting, and I'm still learning how you all want your reports to start with, but Beth, as a treasurer, keeps everything on a cash basis.
Right.
I don't. I have to keep everything on an accrual basis. So when you're comparing, one side is accrual, one side is cash, and trying to figure out where the happy medium is, it doesn't always equate. But yes, you're going to end up with a positive fund balance at the end of the year, basically because of collections on the taxes and Dominion Power.
But I mean, like Mr. Seeley, we're all, I'm sure, surprised. But basically what I'm looking at if I look at revenue and expenditures, the two sheets you gave me, not being an accountant, not knowing whether they're accrual or cash, all I know is the number. And 35.8 was our general fund revenue.
That's correct.
Which is actually 103.75% of what we expected. So we collected more money in revenue
That's correct.
due to whatever good living we were doing, and we spent 97.85, 2.15% less than we were supposed to. So that 5% of what we got in more and what we spent less, is that the $2 million we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is that all general fund?
So, all right, I just want to make
It's
sure
all
it's clear.
general fund.
I just want to make sure it's clear to me. That was just the general fund numbers that I was looking at, this one and then this one.
That's correct.
So, okay, again, we got in more money than we really expected. Because of belt tightening and whatever, we spent less money than we were
That's correct.
supposed to spend. Because of those two, not because anybody found a pot of money in the corner like they did in Spotsylvania. We actually took in more, spent less. That's why we have this balance now.
That's correct. And I'm really quite surprised on the property tax collections that they're coming in as well as they are. And I did talk to Beth, and of course she's gone now, and they have stepped up collections. So the delinquent tax collections is quite a bit higher now than it was a year ago, and it's higher in this last quarter than it has been all year. So, I mean, they've stepped up to the plate, too, to try to collect a lot more in back taxes. And when we built the budget, and up until we saw what the taxes were going to do in June, of course, most of the tax revenue comes in the middle of June, you know, so that only gives you a couple of weeks You know, so you're planning ahead. I didn't